We have breaking news from the U.S. Senate. They have unanimously passed a resolution to withdraw American military assistance for Saudi Arabia's war in Yemen. They also approved another resolution holding Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman responsible for the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. I just spoke with Tennessee Senator Bob Corker this morning about whether he feels the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, has received adequate punishment for his alleged role in the killing of that journalist, Jamal Khashoggi. It's an exclusive you'll only see right here on MSNBC. Do you think that Saudi Arabia has been punished enough for what happened in the killing of Jamal Khashoggi?
No. And so we have a difficult situation here. I mean, we have a relationship with a country. I think people blow out of proportion its importance, but it is a relationship that we've had for decades. We've got a crown prince that's out of control. I was in the most recent intelligence briefing, the most crisp and clear intelligence briefing I've been a part of in 12 years, by far. If he was before a jury, the crown prince, he would be convicted, in my opinion, in 30 minutes. Okay, I've never seen such compelling evidence in an intelligence briefing. Never. So you cannot have a crown prince who's 33 years old feeling that he's able to get away with murdering a journalist inside a consulate. You cannot let that stand.
And MSNBC correspondent Garrett Haake joins us now from Capitol Hill. Garrett, take us through what we just saw unfold on the Senate floor.
So, Casey, not one but two separate rebukes for the administration on their policies on Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and quite a strong rebuke to the Saudis and to the Crown Prince especially. The first is this resolution that was passed, not unanimously, but with bipartisan support, which says the U.S. needs to get out of helping Saudi Arabia in their war in Yemen. It also rebukes the Crown Prince, rebukes the Saudis for their role in the Khashoggi killing. That resolution, while a strong bipartisan statement, it was backed by Bernie Sanders and Mike Lee, about as ideological opposites as you're liable to find in this body. That's not going to go anywhere in the U.S. House. The stronger statement on the Khashoggi killing specifically came from the resolution that was put forward by Bob Corker, saying the United States Senate rejects this killing, condemns it in the strongest possible terms, and the Senate finds the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman, responsible. Regardless of what any other body in the United States says, the U.S. Senate is now on the record as a body. They did this by voice vote, which is not quite as powerful as doing it unanimously, or by unanimous consent. However, it's about as strong, and it essentially says the U.S. Senate is locked in on this. We're going to hold the Crown Prince responsible, regardless of what anybody else in the U.S. government or the president might say.
It's almost a vote by acclamation. And yes, we should point out, we incorrectly said before that the resolution to pull us out of Yemen was passed unanimously. That is not the case. The Senate voted 56 to 41. It was actually a pretty narrow vote. And they had tried to do this earlier this year as well. It failed then. So this really tells you that this is new in the context of what's been going on with Khashoggi. Garrett, while I have you, let's talk about Pelosi for a second, because it seems like she both has a deal to reclaim the gavel, but is also, now trying to figure out how to get the White House to avoid a shutdown.
Right. Pelosi's been working two different angles here simultaneously, really, since the midterm. She has been working to solidify her position in her own caucus, making sure she could regain the Speaker's gavel. It appears through a series of deals that she has now done so. The last of those deals agreeing to some term limits for the top leadership of the party. She says even if these don't pass within the Democratic Congress, she'll hold to them. That's probably going to be enough for her to reclaim the speakership. And she's showing why Democrats should want her in that job with the way she has been pushing back on the White House, essentially playing bad cop to the Chuck Schumer's good cop, while the two Democrats are offering President Trump options to get out of this border wall shutdown mess. Pelosi is essentially saying, she told me and other reporters this morning, that Democrats aren't backing down from their negotiating position here. They expect to move forward on some form of funding, but not a wall, and they're looking at a couple of different options to see how that plays out. Here's what she told reporters this morning.
Some of what I'm hearing on the Hill is that we might be more likely to have a CR for all 7 bills until the end of September. But again, that changes. It goes back and forth. So right now, Chuck and I are not in a negotiation of, we're not going for the $5 billion for the wall.
A bit of Congress to English translation here. The speaker designates saying that we have 7 spending bills that still need to be passed. And if the White House won't agree to not take the $5 billion for the wall, which would be something that would be in one of those 7, Congress will continue funding levels at the same rate for another year, which, by the way, would also have the functional effect of killing the wall, because a Democratic-controlled House sure isn't going to pay for it either.
And I'm sorry, Gary, wasn't Mexico supposed to pay for the wall?
I believe I've heard that somewhere, Casey, yes.
Me too. All right, Garrett Hake on Capitol Hill. Thank you very much, sir. Good to see you.
You bet.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.